Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. We have another special guest. We've been having a lot of special guests and we've got a great response from them. We have a special guest I've been really looking forward to for a long time. I've been trying to get Sue to be my special guest. I have had a heart's desire to be able to get stories from nurses. And so we have a nurse on the line. I'd like to welcome all the way from Wisconsin, Sue Eickelkamp. Welcome, Sue.
Good morning, Andy.
And Sue,
How
how
are
do
you this
I am doing
morning?
great, and I hope you're staying warm there in Wisconsin. And whenever we talk about the winters of Wisconsin, and I've had winters in Michigan, I'm reminded why I moved to Virginia Beach. I'll tell you that much. So tell everybody how you and I got to know each other.
Well, Andy and I met, it'll be 5 years ago in May through work. We worked together.
Great. And you
Mhm.
are a registered nurse, right?
I am a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for over 30 years.
And when we were talking about stories, because like we've said this before, us nurses, we have some
Mhm.
of the greatest stories. And sometimes the stories are heartfelt. We see people at the best and we see them at the worst. But we have those
Mhm.
stories, and we go into nursing for a reason of helping others. And those stories are just so great. You shared a story or two with me, and I said, well, that's something I want to put on Morning Moments. And what is some of your stories today that you'd like to share, Sue?
So, one thing about nurses, before I get to my favorite story, is that nurses have the ability to always have a game face. We really are actors and actresses. You can't walk into a patient's room and see something startling like, oh my gosh, they're having a heart attack, and go, whoa, because those people are looking to you and they're watching you react. And if you're afraid or if you're grossed out by something, imagine that person's terror or humiliation. So, one of the things that I've really learned is no matter how bad it is, whether it's a scary moment or oh my Lord, what the heckers is going on here, you have to have a game face, and nurses can do that. And I think that paramedics can do that, firemen can do that. Anyone that's in some sort of trauma or anyone that's a caretaker, you got a game face. So kudos to all of the healthcare world. Anyone that can have a game face for another human, I think that's super cool. So I've got a good game face for patients. I've been out of patient care for almost 15, over 15 years now, but there's always a story uh, that sticks in each nurse's head, their favorite patient, their favorite story. And I can guarantee that every nurse, um, there's a patient out there that will say, that's my favorite nurse, or so-and-so took care of me and they were my favorite. Anyone that's had multiple visits or had a chronic condition and always saw the same nurse, they've got a favorite. Um, I've got um, I've got a favorite story from my very early nursing career days. I worked on a oncology floor. It was also a surgical floor named Linda. And Linda she's such an inspiration. She was such an inspiration. She has passed, but she she had the ability to light up a room no matter how bad things were. And she was a woman in her 40s, was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she had a double mastectomy, and had her treatment, and had moved on, and thought she had beat that. And a couple years later, she had a stroke. And they thought, well, she's got a stroke. That's not good. Let's treat that. Well, after doing further testing, they realized that the stroke was actually metastatic cancer from a secondary cancer, ovarian cancer. So she had battled breast cancer and now has ovarian cancer. And that's where I met her. She was in for surgery and chemotherapy. And this woman was just amazing. She was a pillar of strength. And despite her diagnosis and despite going through chemo and any pain, she would walk down the hallways in her little nightie, flash people her little stick on breasts with her bald head, singing the song from Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy, with her chemo pole, I'm too sexy for my head. And she would dance all the way down the hall, and the other ladies would see her. They're going through the same thing. Remember, this was a oncology floor too, and they just flocked around her. She started a support group at the end of the hallway with all the ladies with their chemotherapy, their little bald heads, talking about life. She was never down. She was never bitter. She was just an inspiration. And during her breast cancer, her husband at the time left her because he couldn't hand down. She just kept moving and moving and moving, and was such an inspiration for all. She had her husband had actually two adult children, that were from a previous marriage, and they sided with her. They loved her so much that they stopped talking to their dad. And she had two younger children that were actually in their teens. That she had such family support, and she passed away probably after 2 years after the chemo. She fought a good fight, and she didn't win, but it was quite funny. 10 years later, I'm at a restaurant, and this young woman comes up to me she was probably in her mid-20s, and she comes up to me and says, I remember you. And I'm looking at her going, oh my gosh, why? And she says, you were my mom's favorite nurse. And I looked at her, and I could see Linda right through her, and I thought, oh my gosh, you're Linda's daughter. It was the most amazing thing, and it was the most amazing feeling for me to know that I impacted her, this girl, and I must have impacted her mother, because and it was such an honor to know that I was Linda. Through life, and things get you down, and that's always a story that I'll go back to. The way that she was able to inspire people at their very worst moment, and the way she always kept was amazing, just amazing.
And Sue, I wonder so many times the lives that we have touched in our nursing career, and also in life in general. We will never know the impact that we have on people. And every now and then, like that restaurant experience, you get a glimpse, just a small glimpse of what you've done in the past. And when it happens to me, I'm just amazed. I had somebody come to me and says, I was in your anger management class 20 years ago, and it changed my life because I was able to work through some unresolved bitterness and anger, and work on forgiveness that I have never, it took, and it's changed. And here she's got a family of her own, and grown kids now. But she said that because of that, what that one class did. And I wonder how many times nurses, when we just do our job on a daily basis, and the next patient, the next shift, just getting through the shift. I just hope I don't cause any med errors. I hope I don't kill anybody today. Those are things that nurses head in the nurses' heads. And you just go through day after day, and the impact that nurses do. In this last year, when the world have been calling nurses heroes, I've been saying, we've been heroes before 2020. I can tell you that much. And the impact that we do. And I want this message to encourage nurses. Matter of fact, it's such a powerful message. I want my fellow nurses that's watching this to share this. I want you to share this interview that has touched my heart on nursing association websites, because I believe that we need to hear from nurses like us who've fought the battle. We've paid our dues, and now years later we go back and think about and reflect. And so I think it's important for Sue, for the young nurses to think right now what you're doing is going to impact people for years to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't think you really realize um, the impact that nurses, and we go to school and we all learn the same thing. We learn how to do the procedures the same way. We have the same social and psychological classes. But, you know, I don't think I ever realized the downstream impact of the patients and the impact that I was going to make to patients and the impact that patients are going to make to me that are going to last a lifetime. I will never forget Linda's story. I'll never forget that moment, that one moment in that restaurant when her daughter came up to me. I'll never forget her singing and walking down the hallway and flashing people in the middle of the hallway for everyone, all visitors, everyone to see, because she was proud and she didn't care and she wanted to inspire other people. You know, it is amazing. And nurses have been doing this forever. And I've known I wanted to be a nurse since 6th grade. And they told me, don't be a nurse, there's too many. And I said, well, I guess I'll be a nurse without a job because I'm going to be a nurse. And my grandma was a nurse. I've got nieces that are a nurse. My sister's a nurse. My daughter's going to go to nursing school. It's a something that runs in your blood. But that's the one thing in nursing school, we can all put our gloves on the same way, our sterile gloves. And I guarantee if you lined up a whole bunch of nurses, we could all do it in very much the same way. But the one thing is that each one of those nurses is going to have a different patient that's their favorite. They're going to connect with a different patient. It might be someone who's really cranky and angry that you just click with because I don't know. And that patient will always remember that nurse. And each one of us has one of those stories. And for me, it's Linda. And, you know, I'm very proud of that story. I'm proud to be someone's favorite nurse.
Yeah.
You know, and now that Andy and I are not in direct patient care, we're teaching other nurses. I do miss that aspect, but I'll always have that story, and it will stay very close to my heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Sue, I want to thank you for your many years of service and to the cause of nursing and the cause of strengthening humanity through your works and your skills. We appreciate it so much. And I want to thank every one of you who are watching Morning Moments. And I'll mention this again. Get the YouTube interview, get this Facebook interview because it's so impactful, and no pun intended for a nurse. You don't want to say the word impact to a nurse. I always say, but it's such a wonderful interview and a wonderful time. And reach out, and if you got a nurse friend, give them a text, give them a call, encourage them because they need your encouragement as well. So thank you so much, Sue, for being my special guest today.
Thank you, Andy. It was a pleasure. And take care and stay safe, everyone.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for joining me for Morning Moments.